Okay, George. I believe you was an ambulanceman in 1975,
I was.
and you received a call that there'd been an incident at Nuneaton's Trent Valley Station.
Yes.
Do you remember? Tell us a bit about what you remember about that early hours of the morning, actually.
Yes, about 2 o'clock. I was with the ambulance and the crew. Remember, we was up at the Manor Hospital waiting to transport somebody to the Walsgrave Hospital. We had the call, and the controller didn't know whether it was a hoax or whether it was genuine or not. So we sent 2 crews down, and I was the first crew on station, the other following us down. So my job then was to estimate roughly how many patients we needed, how many patients there were, if we needed more ambulances or not, or whether the 2 ambulances could cope. Well, it was obviously when we found out it was a sleeper and it was the train which was running 2 hours late, it could have been a lot of people on board. And the station bloke, we didn't know who he was, said, there is a lot of people on board, there's a lot injured, and we don't know how many. So I asked for about 9 ambulances at that stage, and we got on with what we got to do is go through the carriages with a policeman named Keith Bicknell, I think he was. We went through and I found 2 dead in one carriage, I believe it was. Can't remember exactly where the others were, but I found 4 deceased, quickly going through, and gave a rough estimate of how many patients we thought there were, which is a very rough estimate. We didn't know how many was in the sleeping car, but when we'd arrived on scene, the most thing well, I just can't describe it. All we could hear was the wheels going round and round and round as if they hadn't finished going.
Yeah, so the train had stopped, but
Yeah.
you could still hear the wheels.
Everything was on the
spinning,
side
yeah.
and that, like. There were four or five people stood on the second platform talking, and I can't remember who they were and didn't get much compensation. But then it was all hell out loose getting them patients out and running them backwards and forwards to the, let the control know. And obviously then, by that time, more ambulances was arriving to help. And there was no organisation because we had no budget to organise us, to be honest. And we did what we got to do and got the people cleared as quick as possible. There was obviously some people we couldn't move, and then the police had arrived by that time, obviously, and they were sort of sorting things out for us and giving us a hand to lift. Firemen were giving us a hand to lift, and I suppose I finished about 10 o'clock that morning instead of 6. Went home and got 3 or 4 hours sleep, then come back to help out again.
But the accident, as well as those who lost their lives, there was a lot of people injured. I mean,
yes.
38 was seriously injured.
Yes,
there was a lot of walking wounded as well.
Yeah.
And I believe that some people were walking around, because it was a sleeper train, everybody practically was in their nightwear.
Yes, and they was wandering around across the tracks towards Weddington Terrace, which I think worried the police a little bit, because they weren't sure what lines was being used, and whether they'd all been stopped. Obviously they had, but there's a main road there, the Treble 4, and they didn't want them wandering about there because some of them didn't even know where they were, and obviously they weren't used to the area at all, didn't know the area at all, and they were sort of herded into one area in one group while sitting ambulances come and picked them up and took them up for a check-up what needed it like.
There was a lot of ambulances needed, George. Were they all based at Nuneaton?
No, there were 2 based at Nuneaton, 2 at Dordon, 2 at Warwick. All over Warwickshire there was 2 in each area.
For the nights?
For the
to
nights,
cover nights?
That's all. Coventry had more crews, I can't tell you how many. But I think Jeff Ellis fetched them in from everywhere he could. He asked for assistance. He asked for another controller to come down with him, which I believe did. That was not our worry. We didn't get near the control room at all. We were just going backwards and forwards as directed and picking up more.
Yeah, and you were taking patients to
the manor.
To the manor.
There was only the manor open at that time.
Yeah.
I don't know whether any went to Cobham Warwick. I don't know, but I was running backwards and forwards to the manor. That's where I was going.
So you'd done your shift a bit longer than normal and went home at 8 o'clock just to get some sleep.
I think
and you came back.
Yes.
And how long can you remember how long
I think I stayed till about, we started and did the night shift.
Oh, right.
So I worked through the night that day.
So, got over 20 hours then in
Yes.
total.
Yes.
And
And that was not on my own, that was with, everybody was the same.
other people. But
Same boat.
that memory, George, will stay in a lot of people's minds, and indeed yours. And it's nice that you're able to identify yourself on the photograph.
Yes, I did, yeah.